All right, we got word today that Mansoor DeLane has been named a finalist, one of three, for the Jim Thorpe Award. If you've followed LSU over the course of its history, three Thorpe Award winners: Grant Delpit in 2019, Morris Claiborne in 2011, Patrick Peterson in 2010. LSU, of course, goes by itself affectionately as DBU, and I think that moniker absolutely applies. I don't think you can find a program that has consistently recruited, developed, and sent to the NFL a better crop of defensive backs than LSU. Alabama can stake their claim to it. Florida can stake their claim to it. Ohio State can stake their claim to it as well. LSU is going to stand up against any of them. And it was apparent to me the second that Corey Raymond re-signed on that dotted line to come back from Gainesville to Baton Rouge that this type of effort was coming. It's just what he does. And Mansoor DeLane is more evidence of that. I have thought for a month now that he had a really good chance to be a finalist for the Thorpe Award and could perhaps win it, but I had no idea who his competition would be, so I didn't know who to compare him to. Well, now we know. He's one of three finalists with Caleb Downs of Ohio State and Leonard Moore of Notre Dame. So I saw that release and went, okay, let's go compare statistics. Let's go compare PFF grades. Let's go see if he's got a shot, because I honestly didn't know. And so let's get into it, and I'll tell you what I think when we get finished. Let's go to Pro Football Focus grades first. I realize there are some of you that roll your eyes at that, but this is a compelling thing to look at, so we'll do so. Mansoor DeLane's defensive grade, so all-encompassing on the defensive side of the ball, 90.9 this year. That is astronomically high. I do these every week. You never see rankings in the 90s, and he's got a 90 for the year. You look at Caleb Downs from Ohio State, former Bama transfer. His defensive grade for Pro Football Focus this year at a different position at safety is 84.8, another elite grade, very high. And you look at Leonard Moore, he has an identical Pro Football Focus defensive grade to Mansoor DeLane, 90.9. These three guys have massive PFF grades. DeLane and Moore's are a little bit higher, Downs a little bit lower at a different position. Now, I wanted to look at coverage statistics. Obviously, DeLane and Moore are corners. That's the most important thing for them. Downs is a safety. He does some help in the run game, does some covering. We'll allow for that in this discussion. Mansoor DeLane in coverage this year is a 91.7 grade. Just remarkable. 91.7. Caleb Downs is great as well. 88.5. Now, DeLane's is a little bit better, but he's 88.5. And Leonard Moore, 91.4. So 0.3 behind DeLane. But still, wildly good. That's PFF grades. Now, let's look at their coverage statistics. You look at Leonard Moore. He's a corner. He's allowed 24 catches on 41 attempts. That's 59% completion. Good, 59%. Mansoor DeLane has allowed 13 catches for 34 yards. That is 38%. 59% for Moore, 38% for DeLane. Moore has given up 2 touchdowns. DeLane has given up no touchdowns. DeLane has given up 2 first downs this year. 34 targets against Mansoor DeLane, 2 first downs. He's got 5 pass breakups. He's got no penalties. Leonard Moore has 4 interceptions to DeLane's 2. He's got 4 penalties. If you look at it in coverage, DeLane's statistics are significantly better than Leonard Moore's, except for the fact that Moore has 4 interceptions to DeLane's 2. But if you look at completion percentage, you look at yards, you look at penalties, you look at first downs, you look at touchdowns, DeLane is better across the board. It's just the 4 picks for Moore. Now you go to Downs. I mentioned that DeLane is 38% completion against. Caleb Downs, as a safety, 69% allowed. He's not giving up a touchdown. He has 2 interceptions, 1 pass breakup. DeLane's got 5. But as I was looking at that, I was going, okay, so DeLane, from a coverage perspective, is a tick better than Leonard Moore. Their grades are about the exact same on Pro Football Focus. Statistically, DeLane's been better in coverage. But you got Downs, who's also good in coverage. 69% completion allowed, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns allowed. That's pretty good. But the question is, does Caleb Downs have a truckload of tackles as a safety where he's coming down and impacting the game from that perspective? So I looked it up. Caleb Downs has 49 tackles. DeLane's got 41. He's got 5 TFLs, 1 sack, and 1 hurry. So it's not astronomical. If Caleb Downs had 96 tackles coming down from safety, I'd have to count that for sure. But he doesn't. He has 49 to DeLane's 41. And DeLane is covering somebody most of the time. Downs sometimes comes down into the box. So as I look at this, on paper, I think DeLane has the best case. He's significantly better in terms of completion percentage allowed. The eye-popping numbers are no touchdowns and only 2 first downs allowed. He's 20 percentage points better from a coverage perspective. I think there's a real case that he should win the award. But Caleb Downs' team's 11-0. He's been famous for 4 years. He was a 5-star recruit. He signed with Nick Saban at Alabama. He started as a freshman there. He transferred to Ohio State. They won the national championship. They're going to be number 1 in the country this year. He's on the team. And y'all remember how the Grant Delpit thing went. We thought Grant Delpit's best year was 2018. He won it in 19. If you're looking at famous guy like Grant Delpit was, great team like Grant Delpit was on, Downs fits that mold. And Leonard Moore's team has won a bunch of games in a row, is staring down the barrel of the playoff, and Mansoor DeLane right now is on a team that's headed nowhere. He didn't play last week. He might not play this week. So I think you start to look at the external factors, and even though Leonard Moore has only played 9 games, he did miss some time earlier. The team aspect and the famousness aspect of it starts to look the opposite way. And they're voters here. Now, if they take this paper out and they look at how many times these guys have been targeted, and they look at the completion percentage, and they look at the pass breakups, and they look at the amount of first downs and touchdowns allowed, and they look at the penalties, which is 0 for DeLane and 4 for Leonard Moore, and they look at tackles where Downs only has 8 more than DeLane, and they start to really dive into the numbers, I think Mansoor DeLane at LSU, at DBU, should win the award. You start to look at the ancillary factors of fame, team achievement, late season injury. All of a sudden, you start to look at the other 2 guys. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'll tell you this. The greatest robbery, to me, in these awards in LSU's time, the greatest robbery was Brad Wing and the Ray Guy Award in 2011. Brad Wing dominated the game at West Virginia and flipped the game at Alabama for LSU as a punter. And they gave the award to the Tech punter, who I'm sure kicked some awesome punts against Western Kentucky and Rice. I'm sure he boomed them. Super awesome. But Brad Wing, based on circumstance and performance, deserved that award. He didn't get it. And he was on the famous team. He was on the great team. This was little old Tech, and they got the award. So maybe the famous team in Ohio State doesn't get this one with Caleb Downs. Maybe the team on the surging right now doesn't get this with Leonard Moore. And maybe the stats that have been laid out are strong enough for Mansoor DeLane. I hope LSU has got these numbers prepared. I hope they fire them off in graphics. I hope that they make the voters aware of just how good Mansoor DeLane has been, because I want that trophy in Baton Rouge. Why do I want that trophy in Baton Rouge? Because I believe in the branding of DBU. I believe in the branding. I think some things on the internet are silly and foolish and whatever. But in the transfer portal era, with Corey Raymond on the sideline, and you hope that he is next year, I think it means something to be able to call a defensive back recruit and say, hey, ever heard of Patrick Peterson? Ever heard of Morris Claiborne? Ever heard of Grant Delpit? Ever heard of Mansoor DeLane? Oh, by the way, ever heard of Derek Stingley? Ever heard of Corey Webster? Ever heard of Christian Fulton, Greedy Williams in the NFL? Jay Ward in the NFL, Jalen Mills in the NFL. Ever heard of these guys? This is what happens here. And you can win the award for the best defensive back in the country if you come play for this guy. That's a big recruiting pitch. Era of NIL, transfer portal, all that. There are a lot of different factors. But to me, LSU winning the Thorpe Award is more impactful than winning the Outland, more impactful than winning the Nagurski, more impactful than winning the Lombardi, more impactful than winning the Remington, Groza. Like, this is branding. This is getting out-of-state players in the transfer portal on the phone and saying this is what can happen for here. He was a third-team All-ACC player last year. He spent 6 months with Corey Raymond and won the Thorpe. That's the hope. And that's what I'd love to see coming up next week for Mansoor DeLane. We'll see if he plays this weekend, but I think his statistics bear out that he should certainly garner a lot of discussion for this award. It's Mansoor DeLane, Caleb Downs, and Leonard Moore for the Thorpe Award. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.